activists. Welcome to another edition of The Accidental Activist. I am Shanda Masta, the always serious blonde. And tonight I'm going to talk about my addiction story and my journey from the throes of opiate addiction to recovering and becoming an activist and why I fight so passionately. And I'm going to give the chat a second to prime up. Why is it that when I'm on with Oz, I never have anxiety, but when I'm on by myself, I have anxiety? I don't know why that is.
You know that Charlie Brown, the Peanuts show. Who was the guy that had the blankie? I'm your blankie.
You're my blankie. Is that
Yeah,
what it is? Yeah,
yeah.
you're
I
my
think I
blankie.
think I'm the blankie. So I hope that's not Pigpen. I wasn't dissing you. It's just that I'm your whoopee.
No,
So
sometimes I can be like Pigpen. I'm trying to get into the chats real fast. Hey, Brent McKinney. Hey, Stevie. Thanks for joining us. Serious. Brent McKinney made it in first over at Roar.
yeah, Sharyar's over at
Hey,
the Natural
Sharyar. Good
Answer.
evening.
Yeah. So
So it's my fair use. Fair use. Anything I use, I'm using in fair use.
yeah, who's this blonde lady or brunette lady?
So that's me. That is 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I
Wow.
wasn't very happy. I was not a very happy person. I think you can see it. I've had people point this picture out to me like, wow, you can really see the pain on your face.
Yeah, but you look good. You still look good, you know. I mean, you're getting through it, so keep it up.
So, um, I don't know if I should run. Well, I'll probably just tell you guys like how I got addicted. So, I was a dancer in school, in high school. I was cheerleading, drill team, those type of things. And I blew my knee out over at a big conference at the Pacific Lutheran College. And it was a big traumatic ordeal. I was laid up for 8 weeks and then I had to have surgery after that. And I was laid up for another couple of months. And, it always it healed okay. But there was this big disc, like a lump that formed underneath my kneecap that would pop out. Well, what it was is, like cartilage and stuff had built up in there. So that was free floating for a couple of years and it did a lot of damage to the back of my kneecap and my meniscus. It pretty much ripped it out. So this I'm only 21 and I've already had 3 knee surgeries. And then, about what was I, 28 or 29, I blew it out one more time. And this time I did it so good. I was laid up for years. And so that's actually how it started. I was a hardworking single mom, um, trying to get up every day and work 6, 7 days a week. Sometimes I remember working 21 days in a row, 14 days in a row, so I'm telling my doctors, I've got to get to work. I can't take time off. I have no backup. There's no unemployment. There's nothing that's going to help me. And so, this was probably 2000. My doctor starts me out on a regimen of pain prescription, and I remember asking him, can't you get addicted to these? And he was like, oh, no, no, no. We'll just step you down. When the time comes, we'll just walk you off of them. So that was 2002. I went from 2002 to 2012, completely addicted. And every month I would have to go to my doctor and he would give me 100 milligrams of methadone a day and 110 milligrams of Percocet a day. And I had 7 Valium a day and I had somas and I had antidepressants and I had, so many other things going on by this time, because when you get into a cycle of addiction with opiates, you're frying your nerve endings. And I fried all my nerve endings. So I hurt everywhere. And just the nature of an opiate, you have to take more because you build a tolerance up. So I just always was building more and building more and building more and needing more and needing more. And we have a little rural clinic here. It's ran by the Jamestown tribe, which is one of our native tribes up here. And they're really the only clinic you can go to, especially if you have a state funded insurance. And at that time, my kids were still young, so I qualified for some state ran programs. And so they were the only doctor I could go to. And everybody in my town goes to this doctor's office. Everybody, my mother, my brother, my mother-in-laws, my everybody goes to the same clinic. So at the same time that I'm being handed handfuls of scripts, so is everybody else in my community. And I live in a very small community. Our town literally has like 5,000 in the city limits. I mean, there's maybe 30,000 in the outlying area, but so everybody's got pills. And so now it becomes a currency in our community and in my life because I'm a single mom. I'm trying to pay bills and, now I'm in the game. And, I tried to live that way for so long and I lost jobs, I lost houses, I lost cars. But, I still had to keep that facade up that I was a good, hardworking American, just like everybody else. And everybody was pretending in our community that everything was okay. And so I went, we went to the doctor. I went to the doctor with my brother. And when we pulled in, the DEA was there and they were raiding the building. So they had the yellow tape out and they were doing, arrests. They arrested the doctor that everybody went to. And so now you've got hundreds of addicts without their medication, right? And heroin wasn't that prevalent in our area yet. This was probably 2008, 2009. And so everybody was buying pills from each other or trading, I'll front you 10 if I'll give you 12 when I get mine, that type of thing. And that just became a way of life for so many people. So many people. I literally can go anywhere in my community every day and pass somebody that I probably had a dealing with at some point, and I see who made it and who didn't. And the ones that made it are the ones that didn't go to heroin. And I'm so thankful that I found Kratom when I did, because it saved my life. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys about today is Kratom and what it is. I don't advocate that anybody should take it, but I do know that from where I was at, I had to take it. It saved me. So Oz, you want to roll into my next video?
The Sackler family, art patrons, cosmopolitans, and believe it or not, almost single-handedly responsible for the nationwide opioid crisis. The Sacklers aren't just rich, they are rich.
As of 2016, the Sackler family has a net worth totaling $14 billion. The Sackler family is behind the blockbuster painkiller drug OxyContin. The Sacklers push this highly addictive drug through their pharmaceutical company, Purdue, and rake in $3 billion in profit every year. It is well documented that OxyContin is one of the major reasons behind the devastating opioid epidemic. While the Sackler family has made billions of dollars creating, feeding, and worsening people's addictions, they go out of their way to change the narrative and instead focus attention on their philanthropic efforts in the arts, education, and sciences, like donations to fund the Arthur M. Sackler Museum at Harvard, and funding a wing in the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art. And they even had an asteroid named after them by the Leiden Observatory. Don't get me wrong, this family isn't all about charity and definitely enjoys a lavish lifestyle. Dame Teresa Sackler, a board member of Purdue, owns a $45 million Upper East Side apartment in New York. Beverly Sackler, another member of Purdue, owns a waterfront estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, worth an estimated $15 million. David Sackler, son of OxyContin creator Richard Sackler, purchased a $22.5 million Bel Air mansion in cash. As much as the Sacklers want to build their image around philanthropic efforts, the victims and their families can never forget the losses they've experienced at the hands of the Sacklers' greed.
What's particularly pernicious about the Sacklers' harm and damage that they've caused is the fact that they really lied deeply about data and mistreated the scientific process in order to hurt patients and make a lot of money for themselves, which is so antithetical to what we, particularly as students, are attempting to learn in science.
Prior to my son passing away, April 12th, 2018, I realized that there was a real big problem. He was getting Oxycontins every week. I would ask him, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, the doctor prescribed me it. It's okay." He's 27 years old, and my son's an athlete. He never got physical therapy. He walked in, and within, I guess, a couple visits, they were writing prescriptions right away without giving him any type of diagnosis.
This nation has suffered so severely due to the greed of the Sackler family. In 2007, they were fined $634 million by the federal government for lying about the risk of addiction. That was 12 years ago. Why wasn't something really put into place at that point to make sure that this scam that they're playing on our society by telling us that this drug is not risky and that there's no long-term use harm here? And now we know.
So that was taken from the Bernie Sanders site over on YouTube. What is it? Bernie Vermont. Anyways, Bernie's done a good job of calling these guys out, but it's not just the Sacklers. There's so many other pharmaceuticals, especially the generics, because we have this racket in this country that most people don't realize with the health care that is given to the poor. So, the state's paying for your doctor's visit, and then you're getting these prescriptions. They're covering the cost of these prescriptions. But, let me tell you, there was many, many years where I didn't have insurance, but I still managed to come up with the $1,600 every month to get my prescriptions because there was a need for them. I mean, even if I didn't have the money, somebody else would pay for it to get it out, is what we would call it. And so, you get on unemployment, or you get on L&I, or like a back injury or something like that. That's they keep pumping these pills out, and the state's literally paying for them, and now they're on the streets as a currency. And we'll never be able to hold anybody accountable for what happened during this epidemic, but we have to talk about it because it's still plaguing our communities. It didn't go away. It manifested into a much bigger problem, and that is heroin and fentanyl. And so I lost my insurance. I was on L&I in 2010, and my insurance kicked back after a year and said, no, we're not going to keep covering your bills. So my doctor's office called me up and said, well, you owe us $1,000 in back bills. And I was like, well, I don't have $1,000. And they're like, well, then you can't come back. So, I mean, even though I had been regimented on this pain medicine for 11 years through this doctor's office, they pretty much told me, go screw yourself unless you want to pay us. And I remember when that happened, it was August. I just spiraled out of control. I didn't know what to do. When you go through opiate withdrawals, and people don't realize this, opiate withdrawals don't go away. It's not like a hangover where a couple of days later you bounce back and you're better. They take years. It rewrites the neural pathways in your brain and the way that your nerve receptors are responding to those pathways. So those pathways don't exist anymore to feel normal. And so you'll literally do anything to feel better. I mean, anything. And so right around the time that I was hitting rock bottom and homeless and my kids were all farmed out, I was, all I could care about was feeling better for a couple of hours because I would be so violently sick. And I mean, diarrhea, not sleeping for days, vomiting, can't eat, can't sleep. You can't hold still. I still fidget very bad to this day, but not like I used to. I mean, I would rock. I would just sit and rock in a chair because I didn't know what else to do to calm myself or soothe myself. And so you'll take anything anybody will give you, here's a morphine. Okay, that'll make me feel better for 2 hours, and so that you're living minute to minute to feel better. And so I was at a point where I was just like, God, I can't do this anymore. Kill me, overdose me, take me out of here. And I was up in the middle of the night at 2:00 in the morning, couldn't sleep. I was watching some infomercial and I saw a news report on Kratom, and the lady called it Kratom at the time. And I filed it in my brain and was like, I saw some lady saying, this is my medicine. It helps me. I used to take opiates. I don't take them anymore. I take this. So there wasn't any information out there, 2011, 2012, there just wasn't people talking about any of this. So I started doing the research on it. And, there's a lot of pseudoscience around Kratom because there isn't a lot of real science that has been done on Kratom. And so I went to the Oxford files. Oxford does some of the best research in the world. And I started reading about Kratom and how it worked, interacted with your nervous systems and, what it's working on, what alkaloids it has in it, which ones are the working alkaloids. And so Kratom is in the coffee and tea family. And I got another video, so we'll talk about what Kratom is. I don't want to jump ahead of this one. Oh, this is another. Yeah, let's finish it up with this, and then we'll get into Kratom and how it works.
Videos from families destroyed by OxyContin addiction set the tone.
And now our family approaches another holiday season without my son.
The current CEO and members of the wealthy family that founded Purdue Pharma, David and Kathy Sackler, all offering apologies.
I'm profoundly sorry. I am deeply and profoundly sorry that OxyContin has played a role in any addiction and death.
But the Sacklers, who both spent time on Purdue's board, argued they didn't know what the company was doing to push sales of OxyContin.
Will you apologize for the role you played in the opioid crisis?
I have struggled with that question. There's nothing that I can find that I would have done differently.
The family hammered over $10 billion in profit they withdrew over 10 years, even as states were beginning to investigate. Democrats and Republicans joining forces.
I'm not sure that I'm aware of any family in America that's more evil than yours.
Our opinion of Purdue Pharma and the actions of your family, I think we all agree, are sickening.
The family and the board acted legally and ethically.
David Sackler argued there were systems to stop doctors from writing illegitimate prescriptions.
I'm frustrated and disappointed that they may have come up short, but I think...
I mean, frustration and disappointment's great, but I think you need to pay up and you need to really be held accountable.
The Sacklers are still negotiating a bankruptcy court settlement. Members of Congress demanding they use some of their billions to help those who suffered most. Kate Snow, NBC News.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking.
Yeah, their apologies. They can shove their policies straight up their ass. Yeah, they were so passionate, weren't they? So that's, just wrapping up opiates in a whole. And now I want to talk about Kratom. So let's go ahead and just hit this one, Oz, and then we'll talk about it. That's right. We were the only successful movement to ever push back the DEA. And I am damn proud that I was a part of that movement and I'm a part of the Kratom community. So basically, the DEA came after us in 2016 and said, it's not regulated. We don't know if it's harmful. If it's not harmful, there's no data on it. They dropped a lot of pseudoscience, a lot of lies, a lot of propaganda. They hired lobbying firms to, come at us and change the narrative. And we got out in the streets. We got into our representatives. The coolest thing about working with the Kratom movement is it's not just the left, it's everybody. So you have all these different ideas on how to reach our representatives. And I got to say, the Republican representatives, a lot of them stood a lot more on our side than the Democrats. But I've talked to our reps. I have sat down and talked to our representatives about Kratom. So when I found Kratom, I was at the point where, I was taking 150 milligrams a day of Percocet. Methadone was my drug of choice. Methadone, I believe methadone is the most evil drug in the world. Maybe fentanyl might be right there with it, but methadone, the way it attacks your body, and the fact that they give it out as a cure for heroin. Okay, here, you're addicted to heroin, so let's get you addicted to methadone. And I know how addictive methadone was. So, at the same time, my baby brother, he's doing them too. Family thing, hey, you got anything? Yeah, I got something, I watched him go down the other path and he went and got on heroin, and he's been to prison since. His life is spiraled out of, and this is a college grad. We're not talking about, some kid that was living on the streets. My brother is a heavy diesel mechanic that worked for the school district. And it all started in the doctor's office, just like it did for so many of us. And so I started taking Kratom, and I heard all the time, that, Kratom doesn't help me. It won't help me. I've tried it. I don't feel it. It doesn't work, or it makes me sick. And once it took me a couple months really of saying, okay, enough of this. I'm just going to take the Kratom. Because see, when you're DTing so bad, you want to feel better. Well, kratom just kind of blankets that. It kind of soothes those screaming nerves. You don't get high off of it. You don't, you might feel a little euphoria if you don't use kratom a lot or, but for me, I don't even feel kratom. I feel kratom if I don't take kratom. And that is why I don't advocate that anybody who doesn't have the most severest of opiate addictions even play around with kratom. I don't know why you would, but so you'll never hear me advocating. It is highly, I think that kratom is addictive as caffeine or any other stimulant. The kratom tree grows in Southeast Asia, and like Thailand banned it in what was it, the 40s, because they were taxing opiates and they wanted that money. So it was death. And the kratom tree is so native there. It's like trying to cut down oaks or pines in the US. They're everywhere. That's where they grow, And so the DEA came at us with so much pseudoscience and bullshit, but they never gave us a public comment period. And that was our biggest pushback. And I think that's really what made us actually win that battle. So I immediately, I'd only been clean from kratom, or I'd only been clean a year on kratom when I got involved with the progressive movement. So in August of 2015, so August 2014. So I'd only been organizing for 6 months, 8 months when I got into the kratom fight. And I started organizing rallies and petitions, and I hassled my representatives. I sat Mike Chapman down in my office and gave him a 2-hour, this is kratom and what it did to me, what opiates did to me, what opiates did to our community, and made him understand that natural alternatives to what big pharma is now producing, which is the MAT program, which is the medically assisted treatment, just enriches them even more and drains the coffers of state insurance and, taxpayer money, right? Because we're just paying to move people from one addictive, harmful drug to another. One might be a little bit less harmless. I don't know. Suboxone, I know people that take Suboxone, and there's all these new ones. They've got ones that they can inject you once a week, or, you take a pill once a day, those type of things. You still have to go every day. You still have to go to that methadone clinic. So now what they're doing in my small town is they're going to build a regional clinic called the MAT Clinic. And it's going to be the same tribe, the same Jamestown tribe, where the addictions were passed out for the last 20 years are now going to be handing out the cures to everybody. And they're going to be busing people in, which has got our community in a complete uproar because we are a small rural area. And, we already have homeless problems and not enough resources. And they're worried it's going to bring these people in to be, getting their daily doses. And, now my youngest daughter is in the MAT program. So, I understand. My brother's a heroin addict. My daughter's a heroin addict. My family's, they're all addicted in one way or another. If it's not benzoids or opiates, there's always something that they're relying on big pharma for. And so the fight for all natural alternatives such as cannabis and kratom are so important, because it's the only way we have to actually heal ourselves without chemicals. You want to take me to, so this is the rallies in Olympia. I've held multiple rallies for kratom in Olympia. The last one I actually scheduled it at the same time as the armed Trump people. So the last time I was down there to rally, the Washington State Health Department decided to raid my freaking rally. And this is the flyer that they were passing out to people. And it says, got poop? Did you know there's an outbreak of salmonella infections linked to consuming kratom? So that was a propaganda narrative. There was absolutely no proof that salmonella was in any kratom. They never found a lot. They never found a batch. They were just speculating. And we were shocked. I was so shocked. I was like, you have no science. Why are you out here passing these out? I know more about kratom than you will ever know about kratom, lady. And I was, just shocked to see that they were out there. Washington state, I'm not too worried about, but other states across the nation have already banned Kratom, which is sad because it's the states that so needed it, like Florida and West Virginia and the southern states. They just automatically, oh, it's dangerous, get it out of here. They like to compare it to like spice and those synthetic marijuanas that were around. But it's not a synthetic; it's an all natural, and it's not a chemical. It's not, it's not even close to any of those. So we built a huge lobby. We've got 2 huge lobbies, which is Kratom United, and there's another one. Anyways, we've got a lot of big people. We've got Pelosi's son. Pelosi's son is one of our speakers, which is ironic because he came from Big Pharma. He sat on the board of many big pharmas. And so now the fight for Kratom really comes down to Big Pharma wants to take it over because they want to isolate the alkaloid in it so they can synthesize it and give it back to us as drugs and sell it back to us. And we want to keep it legal. But the problem is we want it regulated to where we know we're getting adequate stuff. So at this time, it is not regulated, and it is hit or miss if you get good Kratom, or if you're even getting Kratom. I mean, you got to know Kratom to know what you're buying. That's what I've learned over the years. I'm going to go to my next slide. Yeah, there you go. So this is our big Kratom rally. That was so cool that day. I love these people. One of the lead organizers, she was a organizer for Ron Paul, so she's right. And then, another one was all about the Bushes. And I love that they come at it with a different perspective because it really made us stronger. My next one, Kratom facts. Yeah, opiates over synthetics. A Kratom is it's compared a lot to like Tramadol or Altram, and the way that it works on your nervous system. And it's really not like that, but it's comparable. So this is The Leaf of Faith. Now, this was a movie. You can find it over on Netflix. It's called Leaf of Faith, and it gives a really great breakdown about the fight to keep Kratom legal and how many people that it's helped. And I can tell you, I have met literally thousands of people that Kratom has saved their life, changed their lives, gave them a better quality of life. And I'm one of them. So you want to hit this trailer and check out A Leaf of Faith.
The United States is a world leader in prescription opioid abuse by far. How far? 90% of the world's opiates are taken here.
Before I had the stroke, I was doing about 90 pain pills a day for 7 years.
Had about 15 years of my life go by in a blur of opiates.
You could roll me up, stick me in a garbage bag, and put me out at the curb, and that was about all it was good for.
Do I think pharma made mistakes? Oh, yes, I do. But we also know there's more heroin on the streets than ever before. Afghanistan and the opium runs poison Americans.
What if I told you I had the cure for the opioid crisis in my hand?
It's not new. It's not synthetic.
Kratom represents a great starting point for developing new, safer pain relievers.
It's a plant that helps people overcome opiate addiction.
What do you guys hope comes out of this?
That I get to keep Kratom in my life because it saved my life.
I'm just tired of pain.
This industry operates like a bunch of head shop little drug dealers.
They're packing capsules in their living room. They put it in a jar and they take it to smoke shops and sell it.
Do we want another addicting opiate on the planet?
People think slavery ended in 1865. It didn't. It's going on right now in 2017. If you're on opiates, you are a slave.
Yeah, so you can find that on Netflix, and I'm pretty sure there's probably a copy of it on YouTube. But great movie. It breaks down, so many good people in the Kratom community and how they're fighting, and there's so many people that support it. You would be shocked at how many progressives within our movement, and I'm talking progressives that you watch every day on the YouTube, that partake in Kratom. I mean, Joe Rogan takes it. Kyle Kulinski, I've heard him say he's taken it. There's so many others too. I've seen it dropped in Slow News Days chats. They've talked about it. And so, but yeah, the problem is it's unregulated right now. So I can go to a little gas station and, I probably had, and I'm not even joking, I could probably spend $400 or $500 a day on pills when I was at the height of my addiction. And, you lose everything when you're spending that kind of money to stay well. And so for Kratom, I can go to the little gas station and I can buy a 90 gram bag, which that's not a lot for me because I take a pretty high dose of Kratom just because of the amount of opiates I was on for so long. So it doesn't last me very long. It'll cost me $25 to $30. So say $20 a day. So if you go from a $400 a day habit to a $20 a day habit, that's changing your life right there. But you never know what you're going to get at the gas station or at the head shop. And that's the problem. I've got very bad Kratom. Kratom is light sensitive and it has active alkaloids in it. So if you leave it in the sun, it loses its potency. It's kind of like weed. If you leave your weed in the window, it's going to bleach out. And so you just don't ever know what you're getting. So then we have all these Kratom vendors online. And I know a lot of Kratom vendors around the country. I got to tell you, when I've been traveling for the Bernie movement, the progressive movement, there's been times where I was in Philadelphia. I was running out of Kratom and I knew a guy in Philadelphia who hooked me up with a person in Chicago. And I literally stopped in Chicago and picked up some Kratom on my way through. And this community, I just know people all over the country now, Florida and Arizona and California. And a lot of them are burners, I got to tell you that. But they are just this amazing community that are trying to help people heal. And, Kratom has other benefits too, other than just opiate withdrawals. It helps with bipolar and mental depressions and all kinds of, mood problems. And I had those. I'm a typical American, I was going to the doctor getting antidepressants for years. And since I've got on Kratom, I'm the most even keeled I have ever been in my life. I don't have the violent manic ups and downs anymore. I don't know how much of that was contributed to the drug abuse, but I do know that Kratom has just replaced a lot of the things that I was seeking from Big Pharma. So since I started using Kratom, I saw Big Pharma for what they were and what they did to me and what they were doing to everybody in our community. And, it's a much bigger problem. Like he said, these drugs are coming out of these wars that we are fighting and we all know it. So that's when I really hit the ground running. Like, okay, it's embarrassing to go out and tell your story. It's hard to tell people the horrible things that you did and what you've been through. But I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for my mom and my brother and my sister and my daughters and, everybody who's hurting from Kratom or from opiates. And so, let's see, where are we? So, trying to think. I don't want to miss anything. You guys got any questions?
Yeah, I'm looking for some questions over here. I just need you to clarify something. Back in the day, a gram of coke was about 120 to 180 bucks. So you're telling me that opioids are like 3 or 4 times that much if you're an addict? Oh my God. That's incredible.
Opiates is a racket, let me tell you. So for Oxycontins, right? An Oxycontin is 1,000 milligram or 100 milligram pill. You can get Oxycontins in 20s, 50s, 80s. They go $1 a milligram. So there was times where I would literally pay $200 and I would walk away with 2 pills.
Oh, 2 pills. My God.
Yes. And that is no joke. It's no lie. And then when they tightened down, when the DEA tightened down on it in 2012, because they started realizing, oh, fuck, we got an epidemic. That's when it got worse because now they were charging double. So a 5 milligram Percocet, $5, 10 milligram Percocet, $10, a Vicodin. Vicodin's not as good. So, okay, maybe $8. But if you think about that, you're going to a doctor's office and you're getting a script of 210 for a month and times that by whatever milligram it is. So $10 a pill. So there's people that are profiting off of it too that weren't even using, but their doctors would give it to them so they could make money. It was definitely a racket. So I buy Kratom now online through reputable vendors that I know where it's coming from. The problem is when the DEA came after us in 2016, they shut down all the international ports from shipping kratom. So we went through a lull where kratom was locked up in ports all over the world, and finally they started shipping it back out. I mean, these poor vendors over in East Asia, they literally will send you friend requests on Facebook, and they will say, you kratom, $80 for a kilo. You know, like, they are so poor, and you see their houses. They live in little lean-tos, and they've got maybe 2-3 acres of kratom trees growing behind them. So they're processing it, and it's being processed on the floors of their houses. It's being vacuum sealed into big bags and then shipped over to American vendors, who then package it up and send it out. So you really don't know what you're getting. I've had stuff with dog hairs in it. I've had stuff with tree branches. You're like, oh, what is this?
Yeah.
And
so a dingo says, a trusted online vendor for kratom ?
Well, I'll tell you, I use Platinum Botanicals. Mike Taff, he's a great guy. You can find him on YouTube, on Facebook. You can find his platinumbotanical.com. That's his website, Platinum Botanicals. But there's many, many great ones out there.
So you just got to kind of try it, and if they do you right, just like drugs, like street drugs, you go back.
You're dealing through the mail, basically, is the way I look at it.
Yeah,
so they've shut our currency abilities down too. So we used to have all these websites. You could just pay with your credit card. Your kratom would get shipped. Not anymore will they allow that to happen. So much like the cannabis industry, we got to deal in cash, or we have to have back doors. So we use a lot of money order type transactions. I'll go get a money order and send him the copy of it, and he just runs it through his accounts. Is one of the things we're doing, but there's lots of others. We're doing, different cash apps.
So you're saying PayPal doesn't work?
No, they shut his PayPal down. I mean, there was a time 2 years ago where they pretty much they were trying to shut the kratom industry down.
Now
that's because Big Pharma wants it.
Now, that representative in Florida that was featured in a couple of those clips, she looks like the Antichrist working for the pharmaceutical industry.
Good catch. Yeah, she is a freaking nightmare. I can't even remember her name, but we've been fighting her for 5 years, and she's just one of those working for, the man. She wants this in their hands. They want to regulate it. They're going to make some money off of it. We shouldn't have access to it. Just much like I'm sure she's anti-marijuana too.
Well, through all your years of activism and things like this, and myself, frankly, being involved in things over the years, you can kind of tell by looking in somebody's eyes how genuine they are as far as, bullshit. And there is a certain mystique or nuanced gaze that these people have, and you just catch it right out of the bat. It's like the Access Journalists issue that's going around this week in social media. I see that same kind of gaze in the likes of Ryan Grimm, for instance.
Oh yeah, I do too. Yeah.
And he came to mind when I was looking at that person. So, I'm sure we're going to have a few followers in the chat when they're going to take a double look at Ryan Grimm now. But, I was just using him as my example because I've lost anything for The Intercept when Greenwald left. But back to the topic. Yeah, Sarah said in 1990s here an 8-ball of Coke was $125 here anyways, and that's cheap.
That's about what it was in the early 2000s.
Yeah, in the 90s, yeah, that was pretty cheap because for $125 because some people close to me were paying like $120 for, like half of an 8-ball. So, that was, that was.
Yeah, I dabbled in that when I was young, but I wasn't. I had 3 little kids. I was a single mom, so I worked. I mean, I didn't have time to play around in that. And then, so that's why it was so shocking to be taken off guard and handed an addiction by a man in a white lab coat that I trusted.
Yeah.
I didn't go out seeking an addiction. If I had too many drinks on a weekend, okay, well, next weekend I'm not drinking. I was responsible. Mm-hmm. And even though I was responsible, I still got addicted. And so many others did too.
Yeah. And for me, back in my partying days, the birth of my daughter was the end of my partying days. That was
exactly.
it.
You got kids, it's over.
It's over. It's time to hit the barn. Again, a lot of people don't have that type of intestinal fortitude because of the abuses that society perpetrates on them through no fault of their own.
Well, can I tell you that during the time that I found Kratom, well, no, when I was deep in my addiction throes, is when I started to wake up. And that's when I found Michael C. Rappaport and Collapse and Peak Oil. And that's when I started to see the world for what it was, all these wars and how we're just cogs, and it's like, ah, fuck, so now I'm even more depressed because that's when the American dream died for me. I wasn't going to go find a job where I was going to get retirement and buy a house and all the things that we think we're going to get as Americans. So to be coupled with that and then the throes of depression and addiction, fuck, I had just given up. Like, the whole world's gone to shit. You're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. Why should I even fucking care about anything? I'll just keep getting high and getting numb every day and pretending like we have a life in a world. And so to wake up at the same time as coming off of that, I mean, as soon as I got well, I was like, I'm fighting. I have to fight. I have to get into this fight for everything. I looked at my kids and the fact that we were leaving them nothing but addiction and despair and, no hope for the future is why I'm so passionate about this fight. And it's being an recovering opiate addict. It's not something I love to go around telling people. When I first got involved with our local DIMS, I was petrified because I was like, oh, they're going to find out I'm a drug addict, that I was a drug addict, and they'll come at me. They'll use it against me. They'll smear me, who am I to be talking in these? And it was the progressives around me who built me up, lifted me up and said, Shandy, you got an important story to tell. And, it's so important that people hear what is going on in these communities. And just little by little by little, I got more courage to do it. And that's why we got to keep fighting.
Do you think today's circumstances surrounding the people of this country and the world, frankly, with the fear, the threat of war now, again, is going to whip this frenzy up of drug addiction and all these addictions?
And it's gotten much worse, Oz, because of the climate of the political atmosphere. So most of the fentanyl. So, okay, after opiates, they shut down opiates 2012, 2013. I mean, you can still get opiates, but they're very highly regulated. You got to have a paying contract, and you got to convince a doctor you need them, that type of thing. They're much more strenuous about handing out opiates. But at the same time, the rise of heroin coming out of Mexico was flooding us, which you want to talk about the CIA in Mexico and heroin and, these wars, you can, but we won't go into it. So at the same time, we literally had an I-5 corridor coming straight up from Mexico into all of the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington. So Forks, I live in Washington State, and Forks is notorious for sex trafficking and, drug trafficking. And so it just comes right through my area. So at the same time I was getting clean, most of my community was flip-flopping to heroin because it was cheaper, it was more accessible, and they didn't have to go to a doctor and play fucking games to get it. So sadly, I've seen so many of my community that were opiate now have moved on to heroin. But now, especially since COVID, they've really kind of slowed the heroin production down coming out of Mexico. Now, I don't know why. It's a lack of, I want to say it's a lack of medications or the lack of chemical compounds that they need to make a lot of it. Anyway, so our fentanyl was coming out of China, which was pretty much pure fentanyl. Now, fentanyl in itself is fucking scary. I have never, maybe once or twice I did it back when, I didn't even know what it was maybe, but nothing like what it is now. It's so much stronger now. It's like 80 times more stronger than morphine. So now you've got all of these heroin addicts who are now moving to fentanyl. But the problem is the fentanyl is not coming out of China anymore because of COVID. Fentanyl is now coming out of Mexico, and they're using subpar ingredients, and that is why it's killing so many people. I mean, we just had like a weekend where like 25 people died of one batch of fentanyl in Vancouver.
Yeah, I saw that. Were they smoking it or snorting it, or what were they doing?
Like I said, I'm not prevalent in thank God. I thank the Lord that I don't know it, but I do know, my friends and family members that do. And yeah, you can snort it, you can shoot it, you can, there's pretty much any way to do it.
I know that those fentanyl patches, and they call it a synthetic morphine, but it's so much stronger.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's really, really bad stuff. And we've had some high profile people die from fentanyl that
We have lost a lot of people. And the thing is now in Mexico, when they're pressing these fentanyl pills, they're making them look like Percocet 5s. So a lot of people think that they're just taking a regular old Oxycontin, a Percocet. And no, they're taking fentanyl. So we've lost Prince. Prince thought he had bought a bunch of Percocets and it was fentanyl. Tom Petty came off stage. He had a broken hip. A fan gave him what he thought was a Percocet and he was dead. It was fentanyl. Those are just a few right off the top of my head. Yes, we've lost a lot of stars to the powers of fentanyl.
Well, that's a shame.
It is a shame.
I'm very concerned, like I said, and I know that everybody is with all the insanity going on right now. There's going to be more hunger, more homeless, and more addictions. That's it. So,
well, what is there to live for? The American dream's gone, especially for, say, somebody in their 30s or 40s. I don't care if you're male or female. I mean, the higher rate is of males committing suicide, but that's that time that everything you were told you were working for in school, in high school, and you got to go to college and you get a career, and then there is no jobs and there is no decent pay and there is no house. And so that's when you hit that wall of just like, fuck it, and so many do.
Yeah, you hit on a very salient point there, because that mirage of an American dream does no longer exist, if it ever really did, except for the fortunate few. So that's right. But again, there's so much stuff getting ready to drop, and shit's gonna hit the fan or whatever, that we have to be vigilant in what we do. And please, everybody, think about things from your own perspective. Don't worship at the toilet of Rachel Maddow or the mass media so much. And I know most of the people in here don't, but again, use that gray matter while you've got it. So Shanda, this is a great soul-bearing, public thing you did. And I could tell that, it's got your emotions.
That, and I'm fighting an ear infection, I think. So they gave me prednisone. Now that's the thing now that I'm scared of big pharma. I hate going to Western medicine. I always try to look to alternatives and natural pathways to feel better and to heal any ailments, because I always question, I don't trust these pharmaceuticals that they're just dumping on us. A lot of them haven't been tested for very long. A lot of them, the side effects are worse than what it's actually curing. There's just, I question big pharma, and I ask you too. Don't just be so willing to take whatever handfuls of pills that they're giving you, because I don't think they even know in the long run what it'll do to you. But tonight I've had to take prednisone for the last 5 days, and it makes me really jittery. So yeah, I was emotional tonight, but a lot of that was the prednisone jitters.
Yeah, well, again, your profile and courage as far as being honest and speaking about your place in the world, where you live and what you've done in the past, and where what you're fighting for and why. And that's the discussion that people need to
I want people to understand where I come from and why I'm so passionate about these things. I being a single mom and an addict and working my ass off on low paying jobs. And, I've been around the country. I've cleaned Dow executive houses. I know. I've seen it, and I've been there, and if I can get one person, what if that one person hears me talking about Kratom and it saves them, because I heard one lady talking about it one night and then it saved me. So I never advocate anybody take Kratom. If you're at that point, I have a lot of people who call me. I've had elected officials call me to ask me about Kratom for their family members, which is shocking. I would never say names, but there's people hurting all over. And this is like one of those, especially if you're a middle-class family, you want to sweep this shit under the rug. You don't want anybody to know that, Bobby's taking, 20 Percocets a day. So I think that the more people that know, the more people that have access.
Yeah, I can't for the life of me fathom people taking 9 to 90 painkillers a day. I think I almost call bullshit on that because your body would toxify at some point. I just
there was days where I probably took 50 fucking pills in a day.
How do you do that? I
would pop 5 at once. When you are so sick and DTing and you finally get a handful of drugs, you're like, okay, 5 milligrams is not going to get me better. I'm going to have to take 25 milligrams. So, and then 2 hours later, you need another 25 milligrams. So that's why your tolerance builds and builds and builds. I've known people that used to take 200 methadone in a day. 200.
I don't know how
a guy who did 200 methadone in one day.
I would think that would stop your system.
He did. He eventually OD'd and died, and that's a whole nother sad, tragic story where the DEA entrapped him, and they used these people out on the streets. And sometime I'll have to tell you about that story.
Yeah, well, I understand despair, and some may not get it. Some should think about it, but when you're in a situation. Particularly with kids, like I said earlier, when my daughter was born, it was the end of partying because I had to become mom and dad, and that responsibility in itself. And fortunately, I wasn't so far down the road that I couldn't recover to the point. But the lasting effects of this is going to be with me forever. And, it's, I don't know what kind of long-term damage I did, but the fact is there's long-term damage.
Right.
So.
But and there's people that I understand, my mother has MS and she has been taking the same morphine script for 30 years. I understand that she can't just stop, and I accept that she'll probably be on it for the rest of her life. Big Pharma did that to her. They enslaved her. Yeah. And so when I call myself a pharmaceutical refugee, it's because I can't go to Big Pharma for answers like everybody else. I'm left out. So where do I go? I go to alternative and natural pathways. And
I think that's the best way to go. And I was, before we head out, having this discussion about pain today because I have degenerative joint disease and hellacious arthritis. My sister's having all kinds of issues where she can't even sleep at night. And that's amazing because she takes like 2 trazodone and 3 Ativan.
I was on trazodone for years.
Yeah,
that
and
stuff.
I had a half a trazodone one time, which was a 40, I think. And I was out from 8 o'clock at night till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's how bad it impacted me. And
it can. And it'll make you a zombie too. I used to be the trazodone zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a walking PDR because you can't be a drug addict and not know what you're buying. So.
No, and being an ex-pharmacy technician.
Well, and I grew up, I grew up in an ER. My mom was a trauma room nurse. So Big Pharma had always been the answer since I was a little kid. We were always at the doctor's office.
Yeah, we were socially conditioned that you go to the doctor and they tell you what you should do and do it, but not anymore. So, again, Shanda, thank you so much. What do we have coming up?
Tomorrow night we're gonna do a Beauty and the Boomer that won't be so heavy. We're gonna lighten it up. I got a lot of funny shit for the deck.
Good. I'm looking forward to that. And we're going to go out with, what are we going out with tonight?
This song. I love this song. This isn't the greatest cover of it because, YouTube, I can't get covers anymore without getting a copyright. But anyways, this is a cover of RX. It's called RX by Theory of a Deadman.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Shanda. Again.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to my story and all your nice comments. And keep fighting, guys.
Yeah, very nice. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow and have a very, very nice evening.
Woke up to a cloudy day, taco sin and it starts to rain. Staring out to the cage like walls. Time goes by and the shadows crawl. Crushing candy, crushing pills. Got no time, I'm pays my bills. Texting Nexus, give my feels. Sweating bullets, Netflix chills. World's out there singing the blues. 20 more dead on the evening news. Think to myself, what's the use? Just like you, I was born to lose. Why, oh why can't you just fix me? We know that wants to feel harm, but the medication's all gone. Why, oh why does God hate me? We know that wants to get high, forget my so-called life. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate. Can't wait to feel better than I ever will. Attack that shit like a kid on Benadryl. Chase it down with a hopeful smile. Hate myself, I can go for miles. And say family's all you need. Someone to trust can help you breathe. Inhale that drug, you start to choke. 5 feet out of an inside joke. Why, oh why can't you just fix me? We know the ones that feel numb, but the medication's all gone. Why, oh why does God hate me? 'Cause I've seen enough of it, heard enough of it, felt enough of it, done enough of it. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate, medicate. Medicaid. Superman is a hero, but only when his mind is clear though. Needs a fix like the rest of us, so he's got no feel when he saves that bus. All the stars in Hollywood Hills, Snapchat Live while they popping pills. All those colors on the rainbow, too bad that shit don't work, no. Your friends are around now, your parents are around now. That hot chick's around now, that cop is around now. Your president's around now, your priest is around now. Everyone's high as fuck right now, and no one's ever coming down. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate, medicate. Medicaid.